You know, whenever we talk about AI and regulated industries, one phrase comes up over and over again: human in the loop. It gets thrown around like it's this golden ticket for safety. But what if that's a really dangerous oversimplification? Today, we're going to look at human in the loop not as some simple add on, but as a critical design choice, the difference between real control and just a checkbox. So let's just cut right to the chase with the big question. Does just having a person involved automatically make a system safer? Does it really guarantee anything? Well, the answer, and this is so important in these high-stakes, regulated environments, is often a big no. In fact, just assuming it's a guarantee can actually introduce brand new risks. And we're going to break down exactly why that is. Okay, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to tackle that flawed assumption that just having a person there equals safety. Then we'll dive into the huge difference between control that's effective versus control that's just symbolic. After that, we'll see how governance is the real key to making it work, and we'll look at how to design for it. And finally, we'll get really clear on what all of this means in practice. All right, section 1, let's dive right into this core myth, the idea that just sticking a person somewhere in the process is good enough. We'll call it the myth of mere presence. Wow, this quote right here, it just nails the problem. It is so common for teams to just think, hey, we'll add a human review step, and poof, risk is lower. But as we're about to see, that assumption is usually the start of the problem, not the solution. And that's the perfect lead-in to our next point. We have to understand the difference between a human who actually has power and one who's just there. It's all about effective versus symbolic control. Okay, so let's get super clear on the definition. A real human in the loop isn't just someone watching a monitor. It means a person has the defined authority to do something, to approve, to block, to escalate. You see, it's about having actual power, not just being present in the room. Okay, this slide lays it all out, side by side. On the left, you've got the ideal scenario where risk actually goes down. The human gets it, they have the power to say no, they have time to think, and they know who to call when things look weird. But then, look at the right side. This is where things go wrong. Approvals just become a routine click, the person trusts the machine without question, and pretty soon, the system is the one with all the authority. The human is just a rubber stamp. And here's the kicker. This failure isn't some rare thing that happens once in a blue moon. No, this is a super common trap, especially in regulated fields, where there's always pressure to just keep things moving. The human's job becomes symbolic, not functional. All right, so if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, it all comes down to one word: governance. Good governance is the blueprint that gives human involvement actual meaning and real power. Now, I know this diagram looks a little intimidating at first, but stick with me because it's a really powerful way to see the solution. Think of it like a blueprint. It's a formal structure that designs human authority right into the system from the start. Let's zoom in on that top part, the control plane. See how a proposal has to go through these automated policy and validation checks before a person even lays eyes on it? That's the key. It means the human isn't just reacting to raw data. They're making a decision based on information that's already been structured and checked. And now look at these amber boxes, the approval gates. This is the spot, the designed spot where a human gets to step in and use their authority. It's not some vague idea of reviewing, it's a formal gate in the process where a person is empowered to say yes. But honestly, this might be the most important part. These red lines. These are your escape hatches, the big red stop button, the power to say no, to halt the whole process, or to send it back. Without these explicit paths, that approval gate, well, it's all for show. This right here is what real control actually looks like. Okay, so we've seen the blueprint. Now, how do we actually build this thing? Let's break down what you absolutely need to design for real, functional human control. To make this work, you need 5 things. First, clear decision criteria, so the reviewer knows what they're judging. Second, visibility. The system has to show its work, especially when it's uncertain. Third, and this one's huge, you have to give people enough time to actually review. Fourth, you need those clearly defined stop and escalation paths. And finally, you gotta capture the evidence. Every human decision needs to be logged so there is accountability. And let's not mince words about what's at stake here. Relying on a human to just magically compensate for a poorly designed system isn't just bad practice. It's exactly what leads to failed audits and, even worse, major incidents. All right, before we wrap up, it's really important to be clear about what we're doing in this explainer and what we're not. Think of this as a set of guiding principles, not a blank check. So, what you're getting here are the core principles for designing these systems responsibly. We're not telling you exactly how to build your workflow because every situation is different and it has to fit your specific context. And, super important, this is not some official stamp of approval for any specific system. That's a whole separate, rigorous validation process. Our whole goal here is to give you and your teams the tools and the mental models you need to design human involvement in a way that's truly effective and responsible. So if there's just one thing you remember from all this, make it this. Human in the loop is not a checkbox you tick for compliance. It's a real control mechanism, and like any control, it has to be designed with purpose, supported by the organization, and governed properly. And that brings us to the final question, the one I want you to take back with you. Look at your own projects, your own processes, and be honest, is your human in the loop a real control, or is it just a checkbox?